1 second.
Is it cloudy?
Wait just a moment.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Oh, should we put like remind people like not
Ooh,
real quick?
I think we
But I
And
don't know
share
if
it.
you.
did.
Oh, wait for me to share it.
Sure.
All right.
Oh, she didn't send me a message.
Oh, Washington. So we are live. It looks like everything is connected. So
Okay.
we just want to again just say welcome, welcome. Good to see you guys again.
Yes.
Thank God for the opportunity to talk to you guys again.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a while since our last time we spoke, but man, I tell you, we had a good time just
Yeah.
talking, getting to know each other. So
We did.
we couldn't wait again for this opportunity. So I'm thankful for this opportunity to present itself again. Me and my wife, like I said, we enjoyed you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for
Absolutely.
having us.
Yes.
I'm
So
very
what we
excited.
like to do is when we get started, we like to open up with a word of prayer. So if you would like, Mr. Washington, go
Sure.
ahead and open up with a word of prayer for us.
All right. We like to hold hands when we pray. All right.
Yes. Come on.
All right. Dear Heavenly Father God, we thank you for today. Thank you for allowing us to
Yes.
be
Yes.
here, God, to connect with new couples, God, with married couples,
Yes.
God. Uh,
Yes.
Bless this conversation that you have, God. Let it be in
Yes.
your will. Let your will be done, God.
Yes.
We are here standing in the gap of other marriages, God, giving the tools that you have, the tools from the experiences that you have allowed us to have, God.
Yes.
We
Yes, Lord.
bless other families moving forward, God. We bless you for what you have already
Yes, Lord.
done, what you're doing in our lives, God, and what you will do in the future. And it's your name we pray and we give thanks. Amen.
Your Lord. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you for that.
All right.
All glory be to God.
Amen.
So, Washington, we just want you guys to kind of, tell us a little bit about yourself. For those that don't know you guys, those that don't know how long you guys been married, how you
Mm-hmm.
guys first met, all
Mm-hmm.
that good stuff.
Cool.
Amazing.
I'm an oversharer, so I'm gonna let my wife drive that conversation.
Oh, really?
Absolutely,
Oh,
absolutely. You got it, boo. You got it, boo.
okay. So, we are the Washingtons. I'm Leneice, the aunt
Yes.
of Curtis.
Yes.
We've been married going on 13 years.
Nice. Congrats.
Thank you.
Congrats. We
Appreciate it.
love to
Appreciate it.
celebrate marriage, man. That's a
Yeah.
blessing.
Appreciate
Yep.
it.
So our anniversary will be this summer in August.
Nice.
And how do we met on through social, I guess it wasn't necessarily social media back then, but online. Um,
Yes.
we met online way back in the day. When was that, babe? 2000 and
It was in June of 2004.
2000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm terrible with dates, so y'all don't quote me. But
Yeah. 20
2004, it
years
was
ago. 20 years ago.
a long time ago, right? But
Yeah.
when we met each other, we were pretty much kids. I was more of a kid than he was. I was going into my sophomore year of college, and I think he just graduated.
You were finishing your sophomore year.
Um, no, because I was a freshman in '03
Oh, you're right. But we met in 04. Oh, you're right.
summer.
Got it.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right.
Okay.
So we
So
met
you're
as
right.
I always say we met as babies just because we kind of grew up together.
Yeah.
And so we dated for
I tell you,
about
these wives, they really good with dates, Curtis. They be
Oh
they
man.
remember those dates.
I
Yeah.
try. I
Yeah.
try to remember.
Yeah.
I do remember the 7 years because the 7 years to me was a really long time.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we dated for a while,
Mhm.
and then we got engaged in when was that?
That was 2010.
Yeah,
Nice.
2010.
Good.
Nice. Okay.
So we had a really good time dating each other, and while we were dating is when we kind of discovered, even though we were kind of growing individually, but we kind of discovered or rediscovered our relationship with God, and thankfully we were able to do that together.
Mhm.
It's kind of, some of it sounds conventional and some of it's really unconventional, but that may be like a whole nother conversation. But
Yeah.
we were able to really like come into our like adult walk with Christ, I would say, together.
Yeah.
And there's so many people that we attribute to that, so many experiences from like our home and our local church, that I believe that without that foundation, that community,
Oh yeah.
I don't know, everything is God's will, but I don't know how, how that would happen. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, we have a special relationship.
We do, boo.
Amen.
We do.
That's
Amen.
good.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how was it? Like meeting online? How was it? Was that new for the both of you, or what? You know, is that something you?
I
Was it new
mean,
for you?
look, they starting stuff. Look, we ain't
That's a good question.
we ain't even 5 minutes in, y'all.
Let's talk
Y'all
about
starting
it,
stuff.
Curtis.
Oh, we actually are 5 minutes in. Yeah, so it wasn't new. So let me all right, let me level set real quick. And so what happens is I was graduating college. Now not personally we want to get, but yeah, I was graduating college in North Carolina, Johnson C. Smith University in Charlotte, North Carolina, HBCU.
Nice.
Yep. So I graduated in 2004, but I am from DC, and so I just went to school
Okay.
there, came back home, and here in the DC area, it's a federal government space, right? And so
Yeah.
we had laptops in school. So meeting people online, they gave us laptops in college. That was,
Yeah.
from that 2000 range, 2000. We were always meeting people from other schools. That's how we started to get connected. That's how it was like, hey, we're gonna meet somebody from North Carolina A&T, or we're gonna go to Atlanta, which is 3 hours away. Go all to these colleges, and that was all happening like through Black Planet, and this is pre MySpace. This was pre Facebook, right?
Oh yeah.
Right.
Throwback.
So
Throwback.
yeah, and so meeting people online wasn't abnormal. It wasn't uncommon. So when I got here, when I came back here to live in DC in the DMV area, I was like, let me just try my hand. Let me see what the pool look like here, right? Like I got the, I'm here. Let me see what the pool look like. And so yeah, ironically, when I met, the reason I knew it was June because I graduated college May 9th.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That makes sense.
I got my job 2 weeks later. I started my career 2 weeks later.
Nice.
So I was sitting at work like, well, they ain't got nothing for me to do. Let me hop on, Black Planet. And really and truly, no lie, it was the first person I met that I had a connection.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
It was,
that's powerful.
You would see people that was like, oh, other people from other states and stuff. But for her, it was, oh wait, she's here, she's local.
Wow, that's nice.
Right. Yeah, it was cool. Like, and I like all her pictures, and I won't get into all that. But
even though your message to me was a copy and paste,
that doesn't mean. But you're the first person I connected with.
I appreciate that. First time, I'm learning new things.
Yeah. I mean, there was a copy and paste message. I mean, don't get it twisted. There was the control. There was the control C. There was the control C. But yeah, it was good.
It was the thought. It was the thought. Look, I
definitely put thought into that message. It was good.
There we go.
That's really good.
Man, that is nice, man.
So what would you say to people that's navigating marriage online now, like, or looking for a spouse online? I mean, because if you both agree, I think back then it probably was a lot better, finding love and different things. And I think it's more riskier a little bit now, just with things evolving and changing. But what would you say to somebody that's in a DM right now trying to holler at somebody?
I think it'll be different on like a male female side, but as the female, I think just knowing kind of like what you're looking for and like what you don't want. So I think it's more of kind of like knowing where you are and like the things that are important to you. So I shared with y'all before when we had our first conversation, like for Curtis, like I'm a really big like word person, like writing and grammar and like all that stuff is important to me. So it might sound really minimal. But like his copy and paste message was a really well written message, and I was like, wow, look at this, because back then and even now people jump into your DMs and they're like, what's up, or they're like, sup, SUP, like what does that mean? So little things like that for me, I knew was important, and so when we were able, that made me reply back to him. And then the conversation, like being able to just have easy conversation just through like email or whatever, the messaging and all that kind of stuff, just came really easily. So I think we had chemistry like outside of even really physically seeing each other. But I think now, and even back then, it wasn't necessarily a safe space to like navigate the cyber world. So when we actually first met each other physically, first met, it was an open space. So I believe always meet in open spaces, and bring a friend. Like I brought my best friend along with me. I went to my first ever like happy hour. I didn't even know what happy hours were.
Oh,
Um,
man, you making me
I
sound real
did. I didn't
weird
know
out
that they
here.
were. I mean, because
Yeah,
I was
I
still,
was.
trying to adult and everything, but just making
Yeah,
sure that you're navigating it safely and using wisdom with that.
yeah,
Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, so for me on the female, like those things are really important for me. I'm not sure.
yeah,
Yeah, I think so. It's twofold, right? When you talk about how would you tell, and I think the question was how would you tell someone who's navigating this space now, like about marriage?
right,
Right?
absolutely.
I honestly think there's also an age and space piece that we should talk about now, right? Because when I met her, we were in our 20s, right? Like
Okay,
we were late teens, 20s. Now
yeah,
we're talking about if you're asking me the question as a 40-year-old, it will be different, right? Even if I
absolutely,
wasn't married, even if I wasn't married, right? My
right,
experience will be different on how I navigate. My
yeah,
intentions will be different,
Mhm.
right?
it's
I
true,
might do a copy and paste, right? When I'm
right,
40, right? I might just be like, oh, like I'm attracted to you. Hey, how you doing? My name is such and
more
such.
direct.
I
Oh
saw
yeah,
more direct, more intentional about my
yeah,
conversations.
That's
And I think that's so when I tell again, it just all depends on to me the age and space you're in. But one thing I would add and be purposeful about is being very specific and
yeah.
true,
There we
like
go.
very specific and truthful. Because right now, like we do have Chat GPT, we can
Yeah,
tell if the message is
Yeah.
real or not in the world. We can look
Mhm.
at
Chat
we,
GPT. Wow.
yeah, you 9 times out of 10, you know somebody, regardless of the state you live in, you know somebody that knows somebody through somebody. Like you just got to be truthful. You just
That's
it's
true.
yeah. I would just tell someone be truthful about what you want, right? Yeah. So that
Yes,
was my response.
that's good. You
Yeah.
talked about truth and how important is being truthful and honest and transparent in the dating stages. Because
Yeah.
my thought is this. My thought is this: you don't just get married to anyone, right? You
Mm-hmm.
don't go down and you don't walk down the aisle, get
Mm-hmm.
before the preacher and God and just say I do.
Right.
There's something that has to,
Right.
kick in your spirit, so to speak, to
Right.
know this is my soulmate. Like for
Mhm.
me, I knew she was the one. She was different than any other woman I dated.
Right.
Even the foundation didn't start on like sex, just
Yeah.
to be transparent. A
Yeah.
lot of my
Yeah.
relationships started on it, but
Sure.
for her, we had a standard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I knew this, she was the one. She's my
Yeah.
best friend. We got a chance to know each other. We talked about
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And I love that about her. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
like, and that kind of speak to that, how important it is to be truthful in that dating space, before you say I do.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
a really important thing you said was getting a chance to know each other.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
I think when it comes to dating, because we always debate about that with like the whole dating thing. When
Mhm.
you're dating, if you're dating and talking to multiple people during that time, but when you figure out that person that you really want to court and that your intentions are to marry that person,
Yeah.
Mhm.
if it's that person, then I think at that point is where like not saying that you're not telling the truth before, but everybody's always initially giving them like the best version of yourself, right?
It's
So
the
you're not
Right.
really
facts.
like
It's the
Yeah.
facts.
you're marketing
Yeah.
yourself a certain kind of way if you're just on a date, right? But I think once you figure out that this is the person that I really do want to marry, or
Yeah.
I have intentions on going a little serious with, spending
Right.
that time to get to know one another, and then that's when the truth will come out. So then I think that
Nice.
develops a certain
Yeah.
level of like intimacy and
That's good.
vulnerability.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
from there, that's when you realize like what his childhood looked like, what my childhood looked
Right.
like. You're gonna
Nice.
share those conversations, and I think that's how you get to the actual truth of things. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Come on.
I
That's
mean,
good.
you definitely hit the nail on the head. Like, and I think one thing that and again, we've had this conversation a few times with a few people in our lives as well. And as you can hear my wife say, there's a difference between dating and courting. So when you ask the
Yes.
question,
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
you were specifically talking about dating, right? And so we
Yeah.
are very intentional about, well, hold on, like we believe that you can date multiple people. Like we're not opposed to that. Like, hey, we tell people like, look, if you just date somebody, like knock yourself out, brother.
Yeah.
Like run them around, date around. But when you are saying, hey, I feel something a little different. I want to take
Yeah.
it to the next step, right? That's when you start having those. That's the courting space, and that's when you want to have those truthful conversations, like
Nice.
all those things matter. I think we even dove into that a couple times the other night when my wife, she was talking about she had a moment where she was being truthful about like understanding her child,
Like
understanding her
family
family
dynamics.
dynamic and
Yeah.
child, and that stuff you
Mhm.
don't even identify in your 20s and 30s. Like,
All right, that's true.
it's hard. Like, it's hard to kind of figure out how that looks about, like, oh, well, wait, am I my mom? Am I my dad? What do I
Yes,
represent, right? How truthful do I really need to be, right?
yes,
Yeah, so it can be scary. So it's important though, because it's always gonna come up.
Yeah.
yes.
Come with time. So
That
yeah,
is really good information. Courting. I think a lot of people don't understand what courting means.
yeah,
So that start, if you start on the relationship, wrong, and I think a lot of problems will come up because you don't know how to court, or there's a lot of lies being told,
yeah,
and a lot of relationships fail, but really before they get started.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think people are not really open and honest,
Yes.
especially
Yeah.
if you don't know the person. Like even with Joseph, I mean, after
Mm.
a while, I just, told him stuff probably he didn't even want to know. But,
yeah,
once I felt like that connection is there, I think sometimes in
Yeah.
the beginning, you may just hold back because you really don't know if it's going anywhere. And I personally don't think it's nothing wrong with it unless you know for a fact this is a
yeah,
person you're going to be with. But yeah, I was open and honest about
Yes.
everything once I knew he was the one. There was probably too much honesty. I don't think he could handle.
yeah. I'm honest with everybody. I'm honest with
Well,
everybody.
and then even communication, once you say I do, once you've been married and you're in that first year, second year, third year, 5 years, how important is communication? Would you guys say?
Yeah, I mean, we are, as we speak, in a communication for marriage class.
Yeah.
Like
Nice.
this is week
Nice.
5, 6,
Something
like
like
that.
that.
Yeah, like we continue to have those continue to try to be in those spaces of having conversations to better our communication, because what I am realizing, and she may as well, but I'll let her answer. What I am realizing is that as we grow older and in time, the
Yeah.
way we communicate is very different.
Yeah.
Our intentions
That's
are
true.
different. What I may have been, I'll say this, what I may have been fearful of saying in the past,
Yeah.
I still could be fearful of that in the present. What I've said in the past may prevent me from saying something in the present. So we
Yes.
navigate that, right? She said one thing to me, and I'll finish. She said, you aren't letting me change. Like you aren't giving me, you aren't giving me room to change. Like you've told me what was wrong. I put in the work. You aren't giving me that space to show you that
That's good.
That's important too.
it's all I heard. Yeah.
But it's
That's
important
good.
for me to even for someone or your spouse to even be able to tell you that and not think of like repercussions or anything like that. So I think that speaks to like the closeness of your relationship. But communication is like, in my opinion, it's the nucleus outside of your foundation and your relationship with God. Like that's the nucleus of your whole entire marriage. And so just as we're always ever evolving, so our communication skills and our habits. And I think sometimes we get into a comfortable space of this is how I used to communicate to you. It worked back then, and we're just going to stay at this level,
Right.
and when really we should be like going to trajecting up. And
Absolutely.
I know personally for us, the reason why we're in these classes, not just because I think it's important to do it outside of like marital issues or anything like that. But it's willing to like identify spots in your marriage where it's like, no, we need to actually really work on this. For us, it did feel like a kind of like a flat line where we're just like going through the motions, and it's like, no, it's more than this.
That's good.
So like communication is just so important. I think without the communication, everything else falls, right? Like your vulnerability, your intimacy, like everything else there's a crack in all those different spaces.
Yeah.
So that's something that we're having fun, like learning more about each other too, because we're not the 2000 when we get married, 2011, Leneice or Curtis, right? And so it's just so many new things we're learning, and we're applying, taking those tools from the class to just manage every single day and using different words and learning definitions. It's pretty cool.
It's cool.
Yeah, that's really, really good. I know for me and Joseph, we do maintenance counseling just for marriage. If we just need it or whatever, we always keep a counselor. So, just like I said, for maintenance, and we've been loving it. I mean, I think last year for me was the first time I ever went to counseling. And when I tell you, it changes the dynamics of just how you view things, and then how things have affected you over the years. And so it was very powerful. And then I brought Joseph on in with me, and it was really, really good. It did wonders. You know, back in the day, they like if you're going to counseling, you know, something wrong with that child.
Yeah. It's such a stigma around it.
But people don't understand that if you get the right therapist, things will change.
Yeah.
You know, some people they really care. They really do it to see change, not just to say I'm a therapist, but you know, they want to see change within marriage and family dynamics in general.
Yeah. And there's so many tools, so many like avenues that I think we all have at our fingers, and we're just, you know, we may be scared or reluctant or think like what other people think about us if we're doing certain things. So like for instance, the class that we're in, it's funny because my mom was like, "Oh, what class are you guys in?" I told her, I was like, "Oh, it's mastering communication in your marriage." She was like, "But you and Curtis, y'all communicate fine. What's wrong?" It's like nothing's wrong. Like this is what we're doing to, you know, help us stay in this place or help us to just even. Why can't we just be even better? We could always do better. That's like always my thing. Like none of us are perfect. That's not how God created us, but we always could do better. So.
That's so good because I feel like we invest in everything else. We invest in school. We invest in, you know, the latest this or the latest that.
Our bodies.
Yes,
we do.
But it's very important to invest in your marriage. I mean, this is something you have a life commitment with. And listen, I'm here for it. That's why I told Joseph, as much counseling or whatever we need, I'm here for it. I mean, we invested tens of thousands of dollars into education. So why not into the marriage?
Absolutely.
God for other areas in our life. We believe God for healing in our bodies. We believe God for a new job or a new promotion. But we can believe God also for our marriage. If your marriage is having an adversity, or if you are having problems communicating, believe God that He can help you communicate.
Yes,
we believe that it's nothing too hard for God. Nothing. So when people give up in that specific area on marriage, I'm like, hold on, wait a minute. He's the same God that can restore anything else. You know, He's the same God that raised Lazarus from the dead, so He can't raise a dead marriage.
Come on.
So I kind of question that. You know, that ain't the God I serve. You know, the God we serve is strong. He's big.
He's mighty.
You know, He's almighty. He can do the impossible. So I just try to, you know, encourage them, believe in God just like you do anything else.
Because I mean, we even talk to people who we know are believers, right? And like, we're not going to act like that believers don't go through separation, they don't get divorced, right? Like what happens is like it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to. I'm sorry. It's uncomfortable to have these conversations, but two, it's the one thing we can control, right? When we are uncomfortable. It's like, well, look, I know how to be by myself. I was by myself before you, right? That's the first thing we think about, right? Like we don't. It's the easiest thing. It's the easiest.
It's easy to give up. It's easy to quit.
Avenue. I can't make her change. That's what we hear. I can't make her change, but I know I can control my environment. I can control where I am. And and what happens is we don't understand how many people are connected to that, right? Like, and I don't want to jump into another question, but like that's another avenue, right? We're talking about so much other items and people and areas of our life that are connected to us.
And really understanding like our marriages, it's not for us, right? So it's like, you know, God gave us each other, but with that covenant with God, our marriages are a ministry, and it is something that we're sharing with the world, and it's something that another couple, you know, would hopefully be able to, you know, want to model or actually just want to walk alongside us, like as to being able to disciple to other couples. Like that's the reasoning for marriages, and it's not about us. And I think the hard part is that we make everything about us, right? Like we do forget that He did raise Lazarus from the dead. We do forget that God, you know, can do exceedingly and abundantly, because we insert ourselves, because we're all over here trying to be God. And that's what we're meant to do, right? And so, and I think that's why it's so hard for many of us who are believers, like to stay in marriages, because we invest so much in like what this thing looks like, and we don't want to do the work to like walk it out.
Oh, that's so good.
What's our motto?
Because
it's uncomfortable and it's hard.
That's so good. That is so good. Our motto is marriage works if you work it. Because I mean, you know, people see marriage, they see bells and whistles, but no, there's work that goes alongside of that, you know. And I know, like for me and Joseph, a lot of people, oh, y'all so cute, y'all get along and this and that, but we had to be tilled. Come on, God had to work on us, work through us. I'm not the same person I was 16 years ago. You know, God evolve. And that's why I love the fact that you talked about how, you know, you evolve in marriage. We do, you know, our communication is different. The way we, you know, have our meetings and family meetings and dynamics is all different. Things have shifted. And I think we have to be open to change.
Yes. Yeah.
Easier said than done, but we agree. We agree. We agree. Yeah.
The work had to be done. I know for me, I could speak to the work. Like for me, when I first married my wife, I thought communication was me just speaking to her and addressing my concern, how I felt, you know, explaining to her, you know, what things bother me. But what I found out with communication is better to listen. You know, listen is just as important as communicating. So when I would listen to her and she point out different things, I was like, oh, okay, she's actually making me better. You know, that's why God brought her to me. So, and I just thought that was so powerful, man. Just how God will use your spouse to help you be a better man.
Joseph, you convicted me, brother. You convicted me.
Like,
I feel seen. I feel, listen, I'll be honest, I feel seen. Like that.
You know, and it's biblical too, because the Bible says be quick to hear and slow to speak. So I had to remember that, you know, during our conversations, let me just, you know, listen to what she's saying. What is she trying to explain to me and get an understanding instead of being quick to respond? And I think so many people get caught up communicating, being quick to respond instead of just listening, taking out time to see what the individual is trying to say.
I think that's so good.
That's
and
me.
I'll give Leneice's take on this. But I think as women, when we feel like we've been heard, there's nothing we won't do. I mean, you know, submission is nothing when we know that we're being heard. And I used to always be like, well, what am I submitting to? He's not listening to me, you know, this and that. And there was a lot of times I had to go in prayer early on and pray and say, well, Lord, I can't get through, you know, but finally he would come back and say, no, I heard what you said. And, you know, it just made me feel good that he was listening and understanding what I needed.
Yeah, because the knowing that they're listening, and I think even not to take it away from marriage, but you know, you think about work or with your friendships and all that, it's the same thing. Like if you knowing that you're being heard and somebody's taking time to listen to what you're saying, your heart kind of softens a little bit, and it makes you feel. It makes you feel wanted. It makes you feel heard. All of the things, and so it builds a different level of intimacy in that relationship, and especially in your marriage. I know, you know, specifically for me. It's a habit that I need to get out of, but I'm a person, I do not like to overly repeat myself, like over and over. And sometimes you do need to repeat for clarity, right? But a lot of times the repeat may be because you really weren't listening, or you were trying to figure out a response to what I was saying, so you missed. You know what I mean? So all of those things, but
I still need clarity. I still need clarity. Why I need the clarity.
But I think if we both if I remember as his wife that I'm not perfect and he's not perfect, and
there
that
you go.
he already like he struggles in this area, like I know that it's hard for him and it's not hard for me. So it's like we talked about that on the podcast, like being like making sure that you make your spouse's weaknesses your strengths, right?
Yes, that's
so
very
me,
important.
I communicate pretty accurately. He may not understand some of my communication, but I'm a really great listener, right? And so it's like even if he's quick to respond and not slow to speak, I'm not. So I have that emotional intelligence, and I'm able to, instead of like making the issue like exacerbate more, bring things back and being like, okay, babe, like, and not being that, what is it, like putting gas on the fire, like being able
that's
to
so
slow
important.
down. Yeah,
That's so important, creating that safe place so you can be open and transparent and don't have to feel, you know, down after the conversation. Because let's be honest, in marriage, you're gonna have to have tough conversations. Because like you said, you know, you made a good point, because you feel like you had to repeat yourself. You're like, hold on, wait a minute. I don't feel like I should have to. But in reality, you should, because you are on the same team, right?
Yeah.
And when you love each other, you're gonna do what? You're gonna do the right thing. You're gonna be mindful. You're gonna repeat it, because you love each other, and you're just reminded how God instituted marriage. So, you know, but you know, it does, you get frustrated at times. That's the human side, right?
In the heat of it all, you're not even remembering all that, right? That's the space that we have to get to it and stop using like, oh, well, I was just upset, and so I forgot you. I'm forgetting about all the promises that God's already like put over my marriage. I'm forgetting all the instruction that He's given me the point that we want to get to is that in the middle of those arguments, in the middle of it all, that we're remembering his word, we're remembering what he instructed us to do. And I think that's the discipline part, and that's the growth that like everyone has to get into their marriage, that we're not having these like high school arguments over like little things,
Right.
And I think the biggest thing for me, because we had disagreements all the time early on, it was nonstop. But I think when you understand that you wrestle not against flesh and blood, and that your partner is not your enemy, then at that point,
seriously,
then at that point, you gotta go and say, hold on, what is this? We shared, I think yesterday, that like our first couple of years of marriage, every Wednesday and Sunday, we would always get into it. It would always be something. And one day Joseph goes, do you realize it's every Wednesday and Sunday we are having a disagreement? So we identified that it was a pattern. And we identified that it was the enemy because we were on our way to a church service or was on our way to do something. But you have to understand the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. So he gonna try to disrupt your day, disturb your marriage, disturb your communication. And so when we start learning that, then we could combat the enemy and say, nah, let's pray.
Yeah. That's big. That's big. I don't have no nickel in this quarter because this is a pain point for me. I'm struggling through. This is a growth area.
That's good though.
Transparency. But that's the transparency, and that's good.
For sure.
And you leave a room for growth. You leave a room for the Lord to come in and teach you those ways.
Absolutely.
Because I'm gonna tell you that, man of God, that's where He wants you to be.
Absolutely.
He wants you to be that husband to lead your family according to God's standards.
Absolutely. So, yes, it's definitely a growth area.
You're growing. You are growing.
There you go.
There you go. She's celebrating the small wins, which is very huge.
That's huge too.
Absolutely.
Because it's just like dating. You compliment every time in dating. Well, you got to take it to another level, even in marriage. So if my wife go in there and cook some breakfast, I'm still like, wow, baby. Thank you for cooking this breakfast. Thank you for feeding me. And I just show her love. I know it's a small act, right? Cooking breakfast, that's small, but I just want to show her the love I can. Just like it's not as small as it may be to somebody else. I appreciate everything you do, big, small, little. I appreciate you. And I just try to show her and tell as much as I can.
Then just understanding, tomorrow really isn't promised.
There you go.
If something was to happen to our spouse, what would be okay with the last conversation we had? What would be okay with the last the attitude we had towards our spouses? So I'm very cognizant now to make sure, okay, if I don't like something, that I get it right instantly, because we never know. And I don't want something to happen to my husband and I was angry because he didn't stop by the store, or just something minor, So we're both mindful of that now, and then we'll just go in prayer. That's like prayer is our problem solver.
And it can, and prayer, it always shifts the atmosphere.
Yeah.
That's one like tool that we should be using more, just as married couples in general, and then also just having little things that kind of break up like what that energy may be. So like if you're arguing, whatever,
cold words.
That is cold words. Like we don't take. I would say we're unserious people. It's like we're serious, but unserious.
A serious person.
We can be serious at work, like when we need to be, but you know what I mean. We don't take ourselves way too seriously, and humor always helps us to break up things. And I think with everything that we're talking about, like even with the complimenting and all of that, like that's hard for some folks because your family dynamics, like the way that you grew up, like the things that you brought into your marriage. When you did get married, a lot of those things we didn't learn or see like modeled with our parents or people around us. So a lot of those things, a lot of us are learning for the first time, like talking about love languages, or like you were talking about words of affirmation. Like, oh, what does that even? I can talk to someone who's been married 15 plus years and they have no idea what love languages are, or like the fact that your spouse may have that thing that they need. I mean, there's a whole science around it. So it's like learning those skill sets so that we are able to do. Because I'm not good at. I'm not going to say I'm not. I was not
You good,
I
dude.
was
know where
not
you're going
good
already.
at giving
Come
words of
on.
affirmation, like or saying like thank you and all
That's
that.
good. That's
I
good.
didn't see that growing up, and he did. So
That's
it's like
good.
that. Those dynamics can make or
Yeah.
break
Yeah.
relationships, but
And even you guys, like, we can see that physical touch is your thing, Joseph. Like, that's your thing.
Yeah.
That's your thing, right? It doesn't make me feel awkward
Yes.
at all. I don't feel convicted.
No.
I'm like, man, I don't feel convicted to do this. Like,
you should.
but like, she's like, you should. Like, you know. But we talk about it all the time of like
Yeah.
just these areas that we know where we
Exactly.
grow, where we need to grow. It's easy, like. We know this stuff, but the implementation is the work.
Yes. Oh yeah. There you
Because
go.
everything is not. The day is going right. Like
Yep.
our daughter isn't here. We had to go have somebody pick her up. It's like we do all the stuff. She's like, "Oh, what I'm gonna cook today?" Or like, "Hey, you have to get dinner." Uber Eats,
Yeah.
like all this stuff. And I'm supposed to be like this, yo. What's up, bro? Yo, what we eat for dinner?
Come on. That's good. Come on.
I was hungry. Like
That's
yeah,
it.
So
I think I'll pray for him.
And it don't happen overnight.
It don't.
You know, it takes time. It's just like anything else, communication and learning each other love language. It takes time and it takes work.
Yeah.
But you just have to make that time, just like we make time for anything else.
Yeah.
You know, me and my wife will have conversations like that. We make time for the job, right? We work a 9 to 5. We make time for our children. We make time to get our hair done. You know, we make time for what we want to do. And marriage needs to be on the top of that list. You know, marriage is ministry. So you make time for your marriage. You make time to go on date nights. You make time to compliment each other because it's just such a high priority and it's needed. And we've seen enough marriages fail, right? We've seen enough in society of divorces. So we need to change the narrative. And it starts with us. It starts with us putting up the work. And then we have children. When you talk about children being involved, we set the example for the next generation.
Yeah.
So if they don't see mom and daddy get it together and they see conflict and we don't teach them how to handle conflict the right way, well, what's going to happen when they decide to get in a relationship? It's just going to be a cycle that repeats itself. So I'm very mindful too of how I treat my wife in front of my son, in front of my daughter, because I want them to see this is how proper conflict is supposed to be handled. So they won't get into just any relationship and then it turns sour. You know what I mean? So I'm very mindful of that.
And definitely like showing affectionate hugs and kisses, because for me, you know, I didn't see that. My father raised me and my mother wasn't there. So I really didn't have the example as a wife from my mother. And there was other women around me who, you know, were mother figures in my life. But I definitely want to instill that nurturing spirit within my daughters, of course. So they know how to nurture, though. They know how to love. You know, growing up, saying I love you wasn't a big thing. Like, you know, you didn't really hear that in the house. You know, but once I got older and I got familiar, I say it to all of my family members. At first, I was dab with my husband, like they be saying it real fast because you know they weren't used to that. Because I had got saved, you know, and so you know when I get out the phone, I'm like, I love you, and they be like, love you too. You know? And then so the more that I was saying like to my aunts and stuff like that, I noticed like you know, it's a natural thing now, because really, you know, when you love somebody, you should communicate that.
That background, that's a topic as well. Like that
Go
background.
ahead, Curtis. Go ahead.
That background of how we grew up, because like I grew up in a space of an only child, like I'm an only child, and so my family's small. Like we're small, small, intimate family. So like the love we saw,
all the love.
I got all the love.
Oh, that's good.
All the love. When I tell you, like I couldn't do no wrong, but I also didn't do wrong. So like there's a piece of that too, right? Like I didn't do that stuff. And so coming into a space of where we see two things, where we see I come from also a divorced household. So my mom was divorced. So even though there was a divorce portion, I still saw a space of love because I was raised by my grandparents were around, my uncles and aunts were around. So I still saw love. And so I can't use that, hey, as a divorce, I'm a divorce, so divorce is where I go back to. That's not my
That's right.
You know, it was my circumstance, but it's not true. When I met her, she came from a 2-parent household. And so I'm like, like dad's there. Me and her dad had the same like interests and stuff. I was like,
nice.
oh, that like
This is good. This is
is good. Like this is good, right? And then I'm like, wait, like, and then there's items where she's like, hey, how I see something different. I don't think like I can't give you this because I didn't see this, similar to what you were mentioning.
But it's more so like, what's your your disposition to do, right? And so it's like we're talking about with our children, we want them to grow up and to emulate what they saw in healthy marriages, and healthy relationships. And so not that I didn't have a healthy image, I just didn't have maybe the most godly image. My parents, they've been married 30 plus years. I have 5 sisters.
Wow, that's good.
Always had like siblings around. And that environment's a little different, but it's the way that I was raised wasn't with the I love yous every 5 seconds. It was the quick I love you, like the quick, like the hugs were always there. I always joke that my family's West Indian, and like hugging is a sign of respect. Hugging is like shaking a hand, right? And so like if we hug, we were hugging out of respect and hugging out of like acknowledgement that person's there. But hugs weren't like, you need a hug, like to console you, or like an emotional or I love you hug. It was, and so even something as small as a hug looked different for the both of us.
I need that every morning.
And so and it's so crazy, like, and that's literally like what he need, like
every morning. Every morning.
When I asked him, like,
so you like physical touch too, Curtis? Yeah.
When I asked him, what's one thing that I can give you every day, or what can I do for you?
You remember that?
Well, yeah, because we do every time we have our class.
Nice.
But like one thing that you can do, I'm thinking, most wives may think their husbands go over into like sex or something physical, and even though it's a physical thing, he was like, I just want a hug. I'm like, a hug? That's all you want? Well, I can do that.
That's a physical touch. Yeah. See, you want to be embraced. You want to be affirmed, and that's what I love too. I tell my
but that's your part. The second word you said, not touched. I want to be affirmed.
There you go. See,
hugs for me do that. Like I don't. It's not the like, hey, hold my hand, rub on me and stuff. It's the affirming part, to saying, hey, you're choosing to give me an embrace before I start my day. Right? It's already hard. Like it already is.
There you go. See,
before everything, embrace me to say, like, you got me, I got you. That's what a hug does for me. It's the affirming.
I feel you. See, I see eye to eye with you, because it makes a difference, don't it? As men. We feel like we don't need a lot. Now, I mean, I can't speak for every man, because some men are struggling with identity, right?
Sure.
They don't know if they want to be men and all this other stuff. But however, real men, they just want the small things, and being affirmed, and that goes a long way.
Yeah,
I love the fact though that Joseph is very in tune with his emotions, because at first, he wasn't open with his emotions. I'm like, do you cry, man?
Oh,
Well, Curtis, this right here, it ain't always been there. Just being
It's been there, but I think it was suppressed.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Sometimes we don't know how to convey that, right?
Yeah.
But I love the fact that he is so in tune with being affectionate and his emotions, because I was raised around some hard men who they didn't cry. I mean, everything was anger and all of that. But to see him really be vulnerable and to, have open conversations and be transparent, or, if I asked him, hey, how can I serve you today? Or what do you need from me? He can be open and honest about that. And I can assist him in those areas.
Yeah. That's funny, because I try to I feel that I am as well. Like I feel like I'm very emotional. Like I feel like I'm very open and have a soft connecting side. But then when my daughter, she's like, Daddy never cries. I'm like this. What? Like, and so then I realized. So to your point, like I started realizing, like, am I being twofold? Am I showing her my truth? Am I really showing her my truth? And I had to, have that. Like, there was a moment when one of my friends recently passed away, and I broke down, and my daughter broke down because I broke down. She had no idea why.
Yeah, like she was scared.
She was scared. Like, and I was, and that like a switch clicked, and I was like, well, wait, like, I was like, Daddy's all right. Like, it's okay. Like, Daddy, someone passed away, blah, blah. She's like, are you sure? Like, I've never seen you cry before.
Yeah.
And I said, man, like that was.
It's a game changer. It was a game changer.
Because I wasn't trying to put up a wall like I'm the strong guy. I don't even respond that way. But like,
I don't think you purposely were, but that's what you were.
That's what I was projecting.
Yeah. And then just to our defense, you know, we are taught, men are taught to be strong all the time. We're just taught to be tough. And we never really had a space to tap into that emotional side. And then my wife come from a background of strong women. So when we first met, she was just very strong and stern. I'm like, man, can I get through here? Can I just tap in? I just need a little bit. I don't want a lot. Just give me a little 10%. 10%. You know what I mean? I just want a little bit. And but as she created that safe place, you know, we talked about that a little bit. As she created that, man, I was able to be me. She was able to see the best version of me. And I love that, because now I could just bring it to the table every day. So, you know, if something was to happen, like she mentioned, she know I gave it my all every day. I'm showing up every day, putting in the work, putting in the time, because this is who God created me to be. So I know who my identity is now.
Absolutely.
So I'm confident in that.
I'm gonna ask you and Curtis a question. So what would you say to the man that is, or the wife who has a husband that's struggling with being vulnerable and struggling to show his emotions, and she cannot get through to that man? What advice would you give her?
She probably has definitely a bunch of answers to that.
Well,
the man first, only because
men first.
Y'all are the ones that deal with that, right?
Well, so I think
struggling,
that, I think that's
how can that wife create a safe place, or what does that look like for a man to open up?
And see, I think that's such a broad question, because I think the first place is creating that safe space, and I think creating that safe space is different for everybody. Like, what safe space look like, right? And I'll talk for us, and I'll use us as an example. Like, it had to come from, for her, it was the I don't want to. How do I want this? I don't want her. It was the defensiveness, like feeling like she had to defend herself when I brought something to the table that I didn't agree with, right? And that's what she would do. And I had to realize, over time, realize that, well, wait, I probably created that defensiveness with being critical. Right? So I had to my saying, yo, like, why would you do it that way? Or like, I mean, we could do it this way. This way will probably be better. And so what happens is, when I come to her and say, you know, she asks me what's wrong, and I'm like, well, I mean, you just came at me this way, or you made this statement, so I really just want you to, like, just apologize. Like, you should owe me an apology or whatever. And she's like, wait, I did this because blah, 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 blah. And she felt like she had to defend why she didn't give me an apology. And I created that. And so, you know, when we talk about safe space, I don't say that she didn't need to create a safe space for me. I had to realize what I was doing, change that, then that space could be created.
That's good. I like that. So that's a good point.
The ownership is on me first, but
that's a good point.
I feel like, I think we have almost the same response. I think, like, taking yourself out of it, out of whatever that thing is what's going to help you to create those safe spaces, but also, like, really knowing who you are. And I think if you're struggling with, like, who you are, if you're struggling with being like, oh my gosh, like, I just want, even for a female, like, we both need safe spaces, right? And if I'm continually struggling, being like, oh, he doesn't hear me, he doesn't see me, he doesn't do this and that, and, like, focusing so much on what he's not doing instead of focusing on what is it that I'm not doing and what am I doing, right? And understanding, like, all of those things he can't be for me. Like, he can't be all those safe spaces for me. And knowing, like, the safest space for me to be is under God's, like, under his wing at the end of the day. Like, knowing for sure, like, my husband may not always fully understand where I am or hear me, but I know God does. I never want to use the words, like, I don't be too super spiritual, because it is that deep and it is that spiritual for us to be able to understand, like, God has given us each other, but he's not my everything and I shouldn't be his everything. And so I think a lot of times when people talk about, like, safe spaces, or he doesn't do this and that for me, if you are a believer, those words, like, are kind of cringy to me. I'm just like, well, like, what does your relationship with God look like? You know, because it's going to be something, it's something where, like, at the end of the day, he's still man, I'm still man. He's going to fail me every time, vice versa. I'm going to fail you, you're going to fail me. And so I think when you're struggling in that space, like, really fixing your eye on what God is doing and what God is to you, and understanding like what is it inside of you that you can change, just like you said, babe, to make that space safer for the both of you, right?
I mean, Jesus did it with all the disciples. Think about it. Jesus did it with all the disciples. Every time they brought him a problem, every time Peter came, every time there was a problem brought to Jesus, Jesus says, "So I mean, what did you do?
That's it.
What role you play?" Right? It's always a self-reflection piece, and then then they, it leads them into making a change. And so we always practice that because we weren't doing that. At least me, I was not doing that recently. Like up until recently, I was not doing that. So just trying to make sure that I focus on I and like how am I affecting her. So
good. Man, I love that, Curtis, man, that accountability piece. Because that's what I hear as you was explaining there, taking accountability and then working on you instead of pointing the finger at your significant other. Because that's what happens sometimes. The enemy will try to confuse you and have you point the finger. But that's not what this is all about. Take that accountability, do some self-reflection, look in the mirror. Sometimes that's easier said than done. Looking in that mirror.
For sure.
It's easy for me to point the finger at my wife. It's easy to do, right? But going in that mirror and facing Joseph, that can be challenging.
It's real.
Facing Joseph and Jesus.
Facing Joseph and Jesus. That's the word. Facing Joseph and Jesus.
You have to be honest with yourself. You really do.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, I think it's so important that we always go back to God. Like he's the foundation.
Yes.
And for me, like I said, I had to stay in prayer, and I still stay in prayer just because it keeps me rooted and grounded, But I think it's important. If you don't have Christ in your marriage, like I think that's hard. Like I couldn't even see myself navigating marriage without Christ.
It's
true. Yeah. I mean, people try. I mean, we know we are very aware. We know some people and they try, right? And it's and what they would say is, well, you guys also have problems. So what's the difference, right? And what we tell them and what we say is, well, we have somebody that we know we can go to.
There you go, Curtis. There you go.
You can assume that there's going to be somebody that understands your problems. I know there's somebody that understands mine.
That's it.
See, that's good.
That makes the difference.
That
makes all the difference.
You can assume that somebody understands yours.
Yeah.
So
that's so good.
Yeah, that makes all the difference.
If it's not, a surface level relationship with God, because it's, many of us got married, under God, but many of us aren't living and walking our marriages out with him and, raising our families with them. And I think all of that makes a difference in how much this is really like the instruction and the foundation for your life.
Yeah.
And, most of my friends, I have all kinds of friends, and, I have friends that believe in God, but they're like, but I'm not too religious. Or I have friends who, they
church
believe it all.
Church hurt. Oh yeah. That's a topic too, all in itself. That's
And at the end of the day, like, it's always gonna be Jesus for me. Like my response, my advice, my it's not, you're not gonna really, I'm not gonna stray too far from that.
Absolutely.
I tell my friends sometime, I told one of my guys one time, I was like, hey, like praying, and I think you said it like, I'm always in prayer. And I'm like, you got a relationship where sometimes you don't want to pray. Like there are moments I don't even want to pray. I don't even want to know what God got to say. I don't even want to ask for this. I don't want to go down this path. I don't want to have this conversation. I don't want to talk. I don't want to tell her how I feel. And like that, and people think like it's the enemy. And sometimes it is. I'm not saying that, but sometimes it's like think of God like your dad. Sometimes you don't want to have that dad conversation. I don't want to go to my father and tell him what I did. I just don't. I feel uncomfortable. I don't want to go to it. I'm sorry. And then over time, you have to get. You go. I'm gonna find out one way or the other. That's what he tells me. Find out one way or the other. And so, we struggle.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's good. You have to come to that realization. We still need the Father in every circumstance.
Yeah. Because church always tells us like we gotta like stay in prayer. Wait a minute, that's true. But like sometimes I honestly don't want to pray. Like, oh, I know what he's about to say. I know he's about to tell me go apologize to her and go and rub her feet and tell her I'm sorry. But I know I'm right. God. I know what's gonna happen. Those are moments. That's
that's real. That's transparent because you had those moments. That's the human side of us, and they don't want to do the right thing at time.
The voice of God keep calling you. So
he keep calling.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can't shake it, you
that's
know.
right.
You can't shake it. Yeah.
That's the love he has for us. You know,
Yeah.
he loves us that much. Even though
Yeah.
he know we're gonna get it wrong at times, we're gonna say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing. He loves us that much.
Oh
That's
yeah.
And
it.
that in itself, I'm just so thankful of. You know, he's not
Mm-hmm.
like us. You know, he loves us in spite of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Man,
Mm-hmm.
wow,
That's
that's a
it.
strong
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
So man, I'm just thankful,
Yep.
babe.
Yeah.
And then just what helped us, those false expectations. I would say,
Mm.
we are human. So I know my
Mm-hmm.
wife gonna make mistakes. I'm gonna make mistakes. So we don't set those expectations so high where we're disappointed when we do fall short. So
Yeah.
I would advise any married couple, don't set those expectations so high for your spouse. Don't do it.
And then we
Yeah.
also human. So for us, we call out things in love.
Yes.
And sometimes if something bothering me right now, I have mastered knowing not to deal with that right now and if it's not the right time. So timing is everything. You got to I know for me, I give him time to cool down and vice versa. He gives me time to cool down because in the past, it just makes a shipwreck. Before you
Yeah.
know it, you want to have a conversation, it blows up. He's in the man cave, I'm over here. It just, it's not healthy. And so learning to healthy communicate is so powerful and so needed, especially in this day and age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we like call fighting fair.
Right.
People don't
That's
like to
good.
hear the word. We're not physically fighting, but you can fight with your words.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Oh
Your
yeah.
fight. Sometimes your words will kill somebody.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
And making sure that we're fighting and we're having those arguments, healthy arguments, and like understanding both sides of it, like not fighting unfair to the point where we're being disrespectful, but fighting so fair that it's still a
Mhm.
respect factor there, and that we're not hitting below the belt, and knowing like that healthy arguments are okay. Like we in this journey of marriage, like we're gonna disagree, we're gonna argue, and it's not the end of the world. And
Mhm.
that was
Right.
something that I know he struggled with, like early on in our marriage. Like anytime would be some kind of conflict, he would go straight into like the worst case scenario. And I'm just like,
True.
what? But that also comes
Yeah.
from your family dynamic, because
Yeah.
for in his family, they didn't argue like that. If somebody was upset, nobody really said anything, or you might shove it under,
Yeah.
what is it, sweep it under the rug,
Sweep it
or
under the rug.
and
There
then
you
in
go.
my family, when I was upset, my sisters, my dad, we were just, you made me da da da. Like, we were really vocal in sharing,
Wow.
how you made me feel or whatever. And it was the opposite for him. So bringing those two worlds together,
Yep.
I would be the one always explaining to him, like, you made me feel this way and da 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 da. And he would just,
Yeah.
what? And in my I know you feel a
Yeah.
way, but you're not really telling me how you feel. And
True.
so we had to
Mhm.
unpack that in order for us to have our arguments
That's really good.
in a healthy way, and really to be able to share with each other how we really
Yeah.
feel. Because at one
Yeah.
point we weren't communicating anything. We weren't even arguing,
Oh
disagreeing or
wow.
anything, because we were too scared
Yeah.
to offend the other and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah.
Oh
So
wow.
That
That's
was my
really
whole life.
good. I want to
Yeah.
ask you, how easy is it for you to submit to your husband? And is there any time, like in the past, that you had an issue like with submitting? And if so, why?
I would say in the beginning of my marriage, I had no clue what that. I had no clue. I had no clue what submission
I was
even
like,
meant
let me think of a time.
in marriage, like none, right? And so, speaking again of family dynamic, my mom, my dad, they love each other. It's I they love each other for sure.
They gonna see this too.
But my mom, I too grew up around very strong women. My mom's a very strong woman, and so I've always just seen my mom, my dad. I've always seen them kind of like as equals. I've never seen my
Yeah.
mom as like the submissive wife, or like, yes, she cooked and she did all the domestic things, but so did my dad. Like my dad cooked, my dad cleaned. Like I've always seen them here. So growing
Nice.
up, I figured that's how this is gonna be. Like you're the not the head. Like we all just gonna be leading and
Yeah. That
doing
was
all
kind
that.
of your blueprint, right? That's what
Yeah,
you
because
seen.
that's what I grew up seeing. And it was no lack of love there, but at that point, there's kind of lack of respect and not really understanding what submission meant. So
Right.
again,
Right.
like if it wasn't for my local church, my first lady, my directors and people in ministry, and just
Yeah.
mentors, like those tightest two women in my life, like through maybe like my first 5 years of marriage, I didn't know what that meant. But as
Yeah.
I grew and actually started, you know, looking for mentorship, I was able to understand like what submission really meant, like what Peter was trying to say in 1 Peter 3, like for us to be able to submit.
There you go. Come on.
Right, and once we do submit, once they see like the countenance of our character,
Talking,
like
boo.
they will be moved.
Yes, come on.
It's so much
Come on,
about
teach.
submission that so many wives have issues with, and I think what I had to grasp was like, how submitted am I to God? Am I submitted to His
That's
word?
good.
If I'm submitted to
See that,
God's
Joseph? You
word,
see
if
that?
I'm submitted
Yeah,
to
that's
what,
good, man. Look,
like
y'all
to
been
what
putting in
He's
the
telling
work.
me to do. If you're submitted to God, like it's gonna be super easy for you to submit to your husband. I think it's gonna be easy regardless of if he's doing what he's supposed to do or not.
That's good.
It may be rough, but I think it all goes back to relationship with God. And it's like if you're not submitted to Him, if you're not spending that time with Him,
That's it.
then
That's right.
like why would you feel like it would be easy for you to spend time with your husband or to submit to your husband? You know, so I think once I was able to like
so powerful.
grasp, once I was able to really grasp that, then my submission is very I mean, it's not hard for me at all. I don't feel like less of a person.
That is so good.
I don't feel less of a,
Curtis, you got a good one, man. You got a good one.
Oh, yeah, man. A great one.
You know, like I know he's the leader. I look to him for leadership. And I think sometimes it may feel like, and you know, like men, especially Black men, feel like they have the world on their shoulders. But it's, you know, that's the God-given role. God's given that to you. And as your wife, I'm going to look to you for leadership. But like my first lady says, like he's the head, but we're the neck. Like, you know, I'm helping you.
Come on, man.
This is good. Understand like different roles. Like there are roles in marriages, and there are roles that God's specifically given us. And nowadays we all want to operate in the same role. We all want to lead.
Now you sound like PJ.
Now you
sound like That's what's wrong with people. That's what's wrong with the marriage. That's what's wrong with the house. That's what's wrong with marriage now, right? Like it's hard. Like it's there. You can be independent in marriage. You can be an independent woman and have your space and be a submissive wife. That's a real thing. And so what we try to do is and I think she was just hard on herself, to be honest, because I've never felt that even in the beginning that it wasn't. We were just so young. Like we were young. So it's like that's the grace that I'm giving her. But like ever since we've been married, it's been, hey, I'm gonna be a mom. I'm gonna make sure that my mom is here. I'm gonna be the husband. I'm gonna be the wife.
So powerful.
That's good.
Right. And then now cultivate skills. You know, church may have cultivated that, but her heart was always there. Her heart was always there. And I come from a house of watching women submit. Like literally watching my grandmother fix dinner for my grandfather who went to work. Grandmother never worked. Come put the plate on front of the table. While he's eating, go run the bath water. Like I watched all of that.
That's good.
I watched all of that all the time. And so even though my mom was divorced, it was like, you know, she still was being a submissive daughter, right? Or being a good sister, like submitting as a sister role to her brothers who were married, and like all of these things. So I saw all of that, and so for her, I expected that. I thought like, hey, I get married. Even now, it happens now. I do not cook. I don't go to the grocery store. That is my role. Listen, I will do the dishes. I'll mop the dishes, but I'm going to the grocery store. And so like these roles, those are things that we had to talk about. And even when we weren't verbally communicating, I was just like, I'm not doing that. That's your job. That's your job to do that. And I think that's where some of the contention came in the beginning. But
I know as wives, like the whole submission part is hard. It's hard for us because, you know, we're looking at our spouse like, well, he's not doing what he's supposed to do, or he's not being like, even someone who, you know, he's not being the man of God he's supposed to be. Like, it's like, well, who made you judge and jury? Like, are you the God that God's called you to be? You worry about whether or not he's the man of God, but are you the woman? And are you doing what you're supposed to do? And if you were doing what you were supposed to do, you wouldn't be so concerned about what he's not doing. So it's like, the submission part of it all, we get so selfish about it because naturally we're, you know, selfish people, and it's like we put ourselves into like a tit for tat. Well, he didn't do this for me, so I'm not gonna do this for him, or I'm not gonna do, you know. And it's just, I don't know. I'm like, it's exhausting. Like You
better put your Proverbs 31, girl. You better put your.
I'm telling you. Hey, she teaching, Curtis. She really is.
She got teaching ministry on her.
Yeah, she's definitely teaching, man. So many marriages would have been saved just by that alone. So hopefully our viewers are really taking this in, man. There's so many nuggets and so much meat that just came out of that. For real, if you just be submissive, you do your part, God is going to deal with that man.
Yeah.
He's going to deal with that man in the things he needs to come up in, but you do your part as wives, and that's being submissive.
And that's so good, because my husband used to
Yes.
tell me that all the time. He like, if you just do what God gonna handle me. That's what he would say. He would say that in the beginning, like, I'm telling you, if you just do, I'm asking you to do it. If I'm doing something wrong, God gonna, I promise you, he's gonna handle me.
And that's just the way it was designed. And it's actually twofold too, because as I look at that scripture and it says, husbands, love your wife, right? As Christ loved the church.
As Christ loved the church.
And there's no criteria. He didn't say you just love her when she's doing good, when she's cooking for you, when she's doing laundry, when she's taking care of the children. He said, love her. So that means throughout the good, the bad, the ugly, my job is to love her. My job is to love her no matter what the cost may be. So once I got that revelation, it helped me too to be a better man, because I'm not putting these false expectations on her. My job is to love you. So I want to fulfill that piece of it.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah. That's the word. Go ahead, boo.
Yeah, man. That's so much meat. I tell you.
Good. But definitely for those that are viewing to ask questions, and whether it's for myself or our guests, answer questions and just give dialogue on marriage and marriage dynamics.
Oh, we just noticed it was the chat. I didn't even notice that.
Oh, yeah, we didn't notice the chat.
Cool. Yeah, man. You guys are full of wisdom, man. Full of knowledge, man. So
thank you, man. It's a long time coming. We're still in the works.
Yes. It's gonna forever be a work. Like you're never gonna fully figure it all out. Like we're not supposed to. And I think people forget that. Like it's just a continual work.
Yeah. We have a good story. But these questions were good. You guys are great. That's a good question.
All glory to God.
Stuff was coming. Where the spicy ones at? I didn't know what to expect.
Yes.
I like y'all merch. So what y'all got on right now?
Oh, so merch.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ben.
Well, you play the church. Go play the
church. First Baptist Church of Glenarden International, located in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. So every year we do our Christmas play, and our Christmas play is like a musical production. So the directors of our play, this is like the logo of the play. It's called Some Way, Somehow. And so we always have merch like every year for it. So now that we're doing more. So these are answered prayers right here. So
in our bags now. Y'all done got us. In our bags.
So for my husband, and I think for many men in the church, it's hard for them to really like get involved and do certain things. The women were more active in ministry and all that kind of stuff. So for years I've always encouraged my husband to do certain things, but I realized that I couldn't make him. So we initially started out like when we were dating and courting all that stuff, we were in ministry together, but as years went on, like things have happened, that kind of fizzled away, but I stayed in certain ministries and he kind of, strayed away. And so, but with that, that was constant prayer, like, okay, Lord, like that's the whole, like they will be moved on the count of your countenance of what they see you do, your behavior. That's true. That was always my behavior. Like instead of me trying to make him do these things or like, manipulate him into do these things, let me just do the work that God's called me to do. Let me just do what I need to do. And prayerfully, he will feel led to want to participate in something that's meaningful to him. It doesn't have to be the same thing I'm doing. And I think for the past couple of years, that's where we've been. And so now we're like in couples ministries together. We're taking our focus, our couple study, our classes together. We're working in ministry together. And so with that said,
we're certified altar counselors.
Yes.
We lead people
became an altar counselor. And so there's so many things that we're doing now together. And that was only
high and higher.
Man, step it up.
And that was only through like answered prayers and just for me, just submitting that, like really giving that over to God. So the only reason I shared that story is because now that we're doing more things together as a couple, our couples ministry at our church, everything, they're very like matchy, like, oh, we're Team Washington. So we're supposed to like wear the same colors and do all this stuff. So we're cognizant of it now. So today when we were coming, I was like, okay, let's make sure we wear like the same things with the same colors. So that's why we both have Yeah.
That's so good.
That's good,
So we
man.
know that you guys have a podcast. Tell our viewers kind of like the history behind that, because I think you went through a rebranding, right?
Yeah.
Well, so we have a podcast.
She plug it all the way. I'm just here. I'm the talent of the podcast.
We have a podcast. It's called Not Me But We, and so that podcast really was birthed out of again years of just kind of praying on bringing our everything that we have going on together as a ministry. Initially, well, right now, so I do have my own like blog and everything called Best Wife Life, and that kind of came out of like, you know, a really dark time in our marriage, times where I really had to just lean on like staying a wife. Like that's why I created Best Wife Life. I no longer wanted to be one, but God he already done told me, girl, no, this is what I've assigned for
That's
you.
it.
And this is
Come
where
on
you
now.
and so from that, a lot of things were birthed. And, you know, after we kind of got out of that time, I would tell my husband, like, we really should like start a podcast. And he just was not interested for years. And I was just like, fine, whatever. And so, you know, I would just keep praying on it or whatever. So over the past like year, he's been talking about it.
Amen.
He's interested. And you know, it's just like doing what only God could do, right? And so when did we start the podcast?
January.
In the beginning of the year. So the beginning of the year we started the podcast. So we're like 3 or 4 episodes in. We're very, very new. But we just decided to do this podcast because so many times we meet so many couples and we know so many couples that operate as like two entities in a marriage. And especially if they have kids, right? So it's like it's me, my identity, you and your identity. And we're just married as opposed to operating as a unit. I think a lot of our discussions or a lot of our you know, we talk to other married couples, that's always the issue because the two didn't really become one and you guys aren't on the same page. So a lot of our conversation with the podcast has to do with like communication and you know, navigating just different portions of marriage. And it's something that we're in it together. So like I just did one episode that was just for wives. He's gonna do an episode that's just for the husbands. We're gonna hopefully in the future have like couples like yourself that will
come on.
And you know, it's just a beautiful thing. So for us, it's like that's our personal, like our ministry. Like the podcast itself, I think is the media, like the medium for it. We're also on YouTube. For us, like people are like, oh, like do you have sponsors? Do you have this and that? It's like we don't have none of that stuff. And you know, maybe that stuff will come, but for us it's something that I know God has audibly.
That's good. Yes.
And that's what we're operating.
And I just want to add, like when she said, just want to add some clarity, like when she said that there was a what'd you just say? You said, hey, this is something that I was doing and I kind of birthed it and I wanted to like to be a part of this. Like this is something I wanted to do. And just he wasn't with it. Then all of a sudden, you know, she said all of a sudden he was, you know, he wanted it
on board.
And it wasn't about like notoriety. It wasn't about because podcasts are becoming hot. Really and truly, it was. We had a lot of nuggets to give, and we have, like I said, we have an 11-year-old. Like my daughter's turning 11 in July, and I want a time where I can create a space where we can create a space and time where she can come back and be like, "Yo, mommy and daddy thought this. Mommy and daddy said that. Like, oh, this is what daddy's thinking." Because to the moment we were talking about earlier, she didn't see the personality, like in her mind. She didn't see the softness. Me and my daughter didn't see like the softness. She didn't see all of these things that I want her to see in a man. Like I'm at that space. Like, hey, I know you're gonna date. I know it's that time. It's coming, right?
It's coming. Yeah, it's coming.
It's coming. So, hey, if you want somebody like your dad, be all of it. Everything is. If he cries, he's not soft. If he, like it's all of that stuff. And so I wanted the podcast to talk about me and Leneice in the space that we're in at some point in time.
That's good.
Space. So thanks for letting us plug our podcast. It's cool.
That's really good.
That's good. Somebody said, how did you navigate going from being single to being a union and not losing your personal identity?
Okay, good question.
Great question. I want to ask this, you know, in a certain way, because when we talk about losing the identity, right? Like there's a death to self that has to happen for the union to grow. Girl, boy, you
Huh?
so like, there's a death to self that has to grow, right? There isn't I feel like I am losing me. It's that there's a shedding that has to happen, right?
Oh,
There's stuff I don't want to bring in here. I don't want to. I can't bring 20-something-year-old me in the streets.
That's right. That's right.
To a message, and I don't want to, right? And so I want to make sure that when we talk about losing identity, I am still me. I am still all of the things that I want to be, but there are certain pieces that don't belong, that God says that doesn't belong in this union.
Yes.
But I am still outspoken. I am still comical. I am still laughing. I am still, outgoing and social. And I'm still, have narcissistic moments. I'm still, all the positive and the negatives. I'm still those people. But there are things I want to work on, right? I'm no longer the finesser to get what I want from women. I am no longer the person that says, "Hey, I'll take you out today and won't call you tomorrow." I am no longer I am no longer the, "Hey, let me slide your DMs," and like I'm no longer that person. So
because the two really should have became one.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's just something that we're seeing, right? Like, or that's just something that we were told, but it's not something that we want to actively operate in. And so I think when you really understand that the two became one, so now your spouse is a reflection of you. I'm a reflection of him, vice versa. When you look in the mirror, he'll see Curtis himself and me, and vice versa. And so it's like, I think trying to keep your identity or keep the individuality gets a little, it's like gray area there, where you have to make sure that whoever you are individually aligns with the marriage or with your spouse. You know what I mean?
That's true, man. That was a good question. Keep the questions coming. Keep the questions coming. Any other questions? This is Q&A time. Q&A.
Cool. Yeah. I have a question for you all. Let me just pose a question. I don't want to interview the interviewer, right? Interview the interviewer.
Let's go.
Yeah. So when you guys talk about navigating the space in your marriage that was tough and tumultuous, right? Did you always know that the outcome would be positive? And if not, how? What was your viewpoint in that season of space? What was your viewpoint? How'd you feel?
I mean, during that season, because it was, that's how the Marriage Makeover got birthed, is because we went through a tough season when our daughter was born prematurely, and it just took everything haywire in our marriage. And at the time, we couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. It was definitely, I want a divorce. I would say that all the time. Now my husband, he was big on not saying that. I mean, I'm sure he was frustrated and stuff too. But it was just so much. And I think during that time too, Joseph really didn't know how to process what was going on with our daughter, where, as a mother, as a nurturer, you just kind of on autopilot, so to speak. And so God had to make it over. Like, we had to get intentional, because our daughter stayed in the hospital for 425 days. And then we had an 8-month-old at home.
Wow.
We had a 6-year-old at home and a 12-year-old, while our youngest daughter was in the hospital. We literally ate dinner every night in the hospital.
Wow. Yeah.
So to be transparent, man, Curtis, we didn't know if we was gonna make it or not.
Yeah.
From day to day, we didn't know if we were coming or going.
Yeah. That's a real thing.
It was so tough, man. With so much stress, so much anxiety.
Yeah.
It was real.
Yeah. But God.
But God,
God, absolutely.
All His grace was sufficient enough for you guys, right? Because there's no way there's no way you did that, especially for you, Mama, like in your own strength at all.
Like, someone says, what do you feel keeps you communicating effectively? Create that safe place. I can't say it enough.
Man.
You gotta create a safe space. And although the Bible says that all things work together for our good, right?
Yeah.
Even in that process, like what our daughter was going through, God knew we was gonna see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so although we were in the midst of the storm, God yet prepared a place for us to now be able to love differently. Our youngest daughter name is Grace, and so we've learned how to extend grace. We've learned how to extend love. We've learned how to give space and not, pull on a person or, identify, okay, if he needs his space, or even our children. We don't talk much about the children, but our kids were affected during this time. Her sister would be like, Mommy, when is she gonna grow up? Because she stayed in the hospital. She's like, and it was times too, like flu season, we bring them to the hospital, but they couldn't even come in the room and see their own sister. So mentally it took them through a lot as well.
Yeah.
But I will say, for the communication piece, did you want to talk about it?
That's what carried me through, because faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. So I said, you know what, Lord, I know you didn't bring us this far just to leave us. I didn't get married to go into a divorce. I didn't come into this thing to end it like this. So when I start a thing, I want to finish it. I told my wife I'm not a quitter. So I don't care how tough times get, I'm not gonna quit. I'm not gonna quit on us. Whatever needs to be done, I'm willing to put in the work.
That's good. If y'all want to tackle that question as well, what do you feel keeps you communicating effectively?
Yes, that's a great question. So
for me, what helps me to communicate effectively with him is that he's my friend. Like outside of being my husband, being my father, my daughter's father, and all that. Like he's my friend, and I think we have a foundation of friendship. Like outside of anything else, and I respect him and I like him as a person. Like outside of, like, if he was my coworker, he would be like one of my best buddy coworkers. Or I work to be like, that's your work husband, whatever. Like he would be my work husband.
She be trying to hit. That's all.
Right.
But I like you, and hopefully you like me just as much. And I think that's what helps me to stay like as respectful as possible, and obviously knowing like this is the person who I said yes to. So even if I am frustrated, I can communicate that I need time, and hopefully he can understand that time means like give me a little bit of space. So I just think having a good foundation and knowing each other enough so that effectiveness of the communication can actually make sense.
Yeah. For you. I don't have any feedback. I mean, that's agreed. Like we both agree the same thing. We both agree the same thing. So I don't have anything else.
We got another question for you. How do you keep the romance alive in your marriage with the responsibilities of children, work, and etc.?
Okay, another good question.
That's a good one right there.
That's a hot one right there. Look, why she got the kid to bed.
Look, you asked the questions, man. The viewers, they coming with it now.
They come with the spice.
We wanted the spice.
There go that spice. You
wanted the spice. Yeah. I mean, it's man. It is difficult. We can at least for us. And again, I'm only speaking for Leneice and I. We go, man. This is what we talk about, like seasons of marriage, and like, man, roller coasters of marriage. Because like in the beginning, it was all me. Like, it was like me being the aggressor. Now it's the opposite. Now it's her being the aggressor, right? Like, and I mean, we do date nights every Friday. We do. We definitely make time for us. We only have one kid, so
good.
Right. We still try to do stuff in the house. Right now, candles burning. Like, we in the house. I bought a massage table. Like, we bought a massage table. Like, I was like, okay,
that's good. That's
massage table. I mean, sometimes if it's busy, she'll schedule it. Like, it'll be 2 weeks in advance. Like every 2 weeks, this day. Like all of it, and I tell people, all of it seems unconventional until you're in that space.
There you go.
The thing is, people think that you'll hear married people don't have sex. Married people don't have sex. I mean, that's the farthest from the truth. What happens is you just got to be more purposeful about it.
Yes.
You got to be more purposeful about it. You got to keep it new. You got to keep it fresh. And I don't want to. Yes. We even took a class at our church last semester called "Keeping It Fresh."
Yes.
For that reason.
That's good. That's good.
How do we figure it out? Do you got to bring in a toy? Like, you might want, I don't know how spicy this is. So, but there's moments, right? Like, because the church will, I told Lisa as well. I said the church will mess you up about sex. Think about it. All day you can't do anything. Like don't do this until you get married. And all of a sudden when you get married, you want to freak. Hold on. You ain't allow me to space. She didn't grow up like that. Like you ain't. I've been in church this whole time. You told me don't do it.
Right. Don't do this. Don't do that.
The devil. It's like don't conform your body. Don't be. All of a sudden you get married. It's like, yo, now we can crank three days a week, three times a day.
Yes.
No, it doesn't work like that. It does not work like that. So, like I said, we keep it fresh. We schedule. We do some, hang out, date night. We talk about it. Talk about what we don't like. She's definitely more open with those conversations. I'm like, I don't talk about this. But yeah, it's cool.
It's important, man. Yeah, to make time. Intimacy is very important. It is.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to make it intentional. You're right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah.
A marriage just does not operate in that particular ministry. They missing out.
I'm trying, but that's the thing. Like it's the how. Like the church will tell you, like you married, you're supposed to do this. You're supposed to have sex with your wife. You supposed. Yeah, I mean, but they ain't telling you how.
Yeah, there you go.
Like, they just like you're supposed to do it. Well, hold on.
Yes.
Like the how matters for some people, right?
There you go.
Oh yeah, how matters.
Oh yeah,
that's huge.
Yeah. So,
man, good answer. Good answer. Let's see if they got any more.
Marriage what you expect? Is marriage what you expect it to be?
Okay, another question.
Is marriage what I expected it to be? And I apologize. My wife had to put my kid to bed and do all this stuff.
That's cool.
It's 9:30 here. I think
we'll wrap up.
I think marriage was not what I thought it was going to be in regards to having to express myself the way I need to. Right? Like I was very much thinking that in marriage, I would do the 3 P's of what they say marriage is: provide, protect, and profess. I'm gonna profess my love for you. I'm gonna provide for you, and I'm gonna protect you. That's what I thought marriage was. The question was, is marriage what we thought it was gonna be? And so I assumed that part, and I had that under control. I had that on lock. Like, I'm good. You gonna get all this love. I'm gonna tell you, like, we good. I did not know anything about the conversations, because I didn't see that. I didn't see that growing up. I didn't see pillow talk. Like, I didn't know that. So I was like, well, wait, like, all of a sudden you want me to tell you where I'm going and tell you what time I'll be back? Like, so you feel comfortable? Like, I've been moving before. Like, it was just so much, like, and I wasn't used to that.
That's right.
Yeah, and so when we started dating, we didn't live together before marriage. I was like, I don't know about that. Like, that's not. We just didn't live together. It took me 7 years to propose, and we didn't live together until 3 months before the wedding. And and like that was one of the things that I just did not know. Like I was like, man, this is so much talking. Like, why do I have to keep explaining myself? It was so much conversation.
It makes you communicate, don't it? It makes you better.
So how do you feel today?
Yeah. You didn't want to talk about your feelings.
I know, like,
because you be talking.
I be talking, but I don't want to talk about my feelings. Like, I don't want to know, like, so how did that make you feel today? I don't know.
Like, let's unpack that.
Yeah, that's her all day. That's her all day.
Yeah.
So did you like it? Like, yeah. So, is marriage what you thought it would be?
That's good.
Just go ahead and say yes. That you married a man.
I think
there we go.
Pretty dope.
Make it short and sweet.
Marriage was everything I thought it would be. I think marriage for me, I really thought marriage for me was going to look like what marriage looked like for my parents. Yeah. And so I thought, it was going to look like I said earlier, like 2 people leading in a home. We, we're doing the same kind of chores. Like, you cook, I cook, you clean, like we're operating kind of in the same roles. And that he honestly would just do the things that I would want him to do because I asked him to do it. Because that's what I saw growing up. And that's sounds elementary, but that's what I saw, and that's what I thought it was going to be. And so realizing that, oh, okay, like even though he's really, I did, you know how they say like you end up marrying a version of your father or whatever. For me, that ended up being almost true. Like my husband and my dad, they're both like IT professionals. They both have almost the same kind of like personality, same interests, and all that kind of stuff. And
wow, that's good.
a lot of times
That's
I'm
my guy.
like,
That's my guy.
oh, that's something my dad would say, right? And so, but understand that he still is very different from my dad, especially as a husband. Like my father was my father. So yeah, so marriage for me was a eye opening awakening of realizing that I play a huge role as a wife, and that I'm required to do some things to make this work, and it's not just like my husband's responsibility for the entire marriage. Like it really is a partnership, and nobody really told me that. So
yeah, that part, you know, you don't know going in. No, we learn so many things about each other, and you know, you just don't know everything before marriage. And I don't even care how much premarital counsel you go through. I think you still just won't know everything before you get married. You know,
I don't think we're supposed to. You know, like I think that's the beauty in it all. Like learning each other, and you know, finding out little nuances, and then really figuring it out together, because that's what God wants us to do. Like to figure it out together. And I don't think it's meant to be easy. You know how a lot of like premarital counseling, they'll be like, our goal is to get you to break up. Our goal is to get you not. And it sounds backwards, but
it might not be in everybody's class.
No, but a lot of premarital counseling, like the goal is for people to help you understand what marriage is going to look like so much that maybe you don't want to, maybe you're running away from it because maybe you're not ready. But once you are in this thing, like I think that's why God sends us so many, you know, obstacles our way, because that's what we're
we know somebody that went through marriage counseling. They really did break up.
Yes.
Oh, it's a real thing. Oh, it's expensive. Man,
we never went to marriage counseling. So
oh man,
God was our wonderful counselor. Right?
Yeah.
He is the counselor.
Okay. We have some crazy stories. Like, hey, put y'all taxes down. Put them all on the table.
So we got another question.
Okay,
Washa. It says, do you think being married has allowed you to become more graceful?
Being married graceful.
allowed
you to be more graceful. Yeah, being married.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know.
I think but even understanding like what grace is, you know, and understanding like there's no way that I can extend grace if I haven't received God's grace for myself, because then I won't be able to give that out. So it's like, until I understand that God's graced me to do so many things, or God's given me his grace, he sent his son to die for me. Like, that's the grace he extended towards me. And so if you don't fully understand grace for yourself, like, you wouldn't even know what it means like to be graceful or to extend grace to your husband or to anybody else.
That's
and so yeah, like
marriage, right.
It's the ultimate show of grace.
Marriage is the ultimate show of grace. Yeah. I don't have anything. You hit it. I don't have anything. I don't have anything for that one.
Leneice is teaching. Seriously.
This is what she does.
You have to learn how to extend grace, because you know God has forgiven us. So who am I to not extend grace to my husband? You know, we gotta die to this flesh daily. So God gave his only son for us. So if he can extend his son, surely we can extend grace. And it's made me very, very grateful to be able to extend grace, because that's something I didn't know how to do. You know, I came from a background of, like you said, strong women. So I could hold unforgiveness. I could not talk to you. I could do all the wrong things. But when I understood grace, there's so much power in giving grace. You know. And I think we forget that we reap what we sow. And so the more I can extend grace to my husband, the more I get grace in return.
For sure.
That's it.
I think we do forget that, you know, we reap what we sow. So what kind of seeds are you sowing?
Yeah.
You know, especially in your marriage, you know, in marriage, you have to realize, what kind of seeds are you sowing? Are you sowing good seeds so you can reap that good harvest?
Yeah.
So that's powerful.
That's so
you
good.
better keep teaching. Hey, you better teach.
Man, y'all man, she preaching better than I'm saying amen. Go ahead.
You know, it's just a powerful thing, especially when you can come into the knowledge of seeing yourself evolve and change. And, you know, I've always had a desire to do the right thing, but sometimes we have that small voice that say, "Well, nah, you got done this way." It's easy to give vengeance, but can you extend grace?
Yeah, it's definitely
I think it's learned behavior too. That childhood we kind of talked about, depending on how your childhood was, if that's how they handle things and that's how they handle conflict, you take that in your marriage.
Yeah,
that's true.
That's all the
Those
baggage
issues right into your marriage.
That's true. That's it. That's it.
So you have to unload before you get married. Unload before you go.
That's it. That's why we hope the baptism takes away some of that stuff.
Come on now. Come on,
That's
Curtis.
it. Create a new. Open
That's
that
your
dip.
keeping power.
That's it.
Come on, Curtis.
That's it. That's it.
Well, I'm gonna just say this. We're gonna get ready and wrap it up. But what advice would you give to those that are viewing now when it comes to marriage? What's one piece of advice from each one of y'all that you can give those that may be looking to be married or that is currently married and may be struggling in their marriage?
Great question. Ladies first.
I would say for wives, because just as women we're so emotional, and we do have a lot on our shoulders as well, being a mother or being mother figures and all that kind of good stuff, to just not quit. Like, don't get weary in well doing. And remember those words. Remember the instructions from God to stay in the game and to just keep on keeping on, like just keep in the race. And I guess it's not, what is it? What do they say? It's not a race, it's a what?
Marathon.
It's a marathon.
It's
a marathon.
Yes, and just continue to run that, and just don't quit, and keeping God in the center of all that you do. And even if I know many wives who are married to unbelievers, to their husband may not be a believer. Do what God has told you to do. If you believe, like, stay in that, and God his promises will come to fruition for you. So just stay in the game, what I would say.
Yeah. And you said, and this is for who want to be married or who is married already?
So both.
Okay,
those that are currently married at the moment, but then those that's on the fence, because there's that stigma. I don't know about getting married. Some people still don't believe. How would you help them, Curtis?
Right. So So what I would say is don't believe everything you see as the consistency of life. Like, when I say consistency of life, that there are seasons and reasons for everything, right? If you pray about it and God tells you this is the person, believe that. It is not awkward. It is not by happenstance. Right? Because I'm not going to always love the way she's look. Her look can change. Her body style can change. The thought, like the way she communicates to me, can change. All of that, but God put me here for her spirit, for her soul, for who she is. And so, I would just tell people, whether it's newly married, not yet married, even in marriage, just she said stay the course, but it's like, don't believe everything you see at that moment. Like, don't believe everything you see in that space, because sometimes your lens could change too. Could be the season that you're in that's affecting the marriage. So
come on, Curtis.
Come
on. And that's good.
Yeah.
Curtis, man, y'all did an awesome job too, man.
Appreciate you
I hope that those viewers, everybody that's on, took something away from everything that was said on tonight.
Absolutely.
It was a lot of valuable information.
A lot of good meat.
A lot of good meat. So I pray that everyone was encouraged on tonight. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you guys for having us, man. You guys were wonderful, man. You guys were an awesome couple to talk to, narrating. Thank you for the opportunity, for even reaching out to us, for even having this. But we pray blessings over your platform, over your future, over what God has for your family, over what God has for even your viewership, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
So,
thank you.
Stay consistent and stay faithful to what God sees for you. I'm sure we're going to connect again.
Yes. Oh yeah.
You want to come out to St. Louis?
Hey, I told you. Hey, look, we're trying to get over there. Look, DC, right?
DC, that's it.
Yeah, man. I've never been to DC, so look, I can check that out. I need to
come house. I gotta come on.
Everybody want to see the White House, no matter who in it. Everybody want to see it.
Bring all the kids.
Bring all the kids.
DC.
But this has been wonderful. If you guys want to plug your Instagram, Facebook, your social media platforms, for our viewers that's watching, can follow your page and everything like that.
Okay. If you guys want to follow me, I'm over on Instagram at best_wife_life. That's where I have like all my wifey things. And then if you want to follow us together as a couple, we're over at not me. It's a capital K, KNOT _ but we pod on Instagram. And then
That's nice.
Yeah,
That's
not
nice.
me, but we. Yep. And so yeah, my Instagram is Kurt_Wash_JR for Junior. If you want to follow me, I mean, you can follow me if you want. My page open, so it doesn't. You can follow me. All I do is cycle, so it's a lot of biking on there. So, but no, but yeah. Again, thanks for having
Thank
us,
you,
man.
guys.
This is very enjoyable.
Yeah, well, it was a blessing, man.
It's a blessing.
Thank God, man. That you guys as a couple, man, you guys are a blessing to the kingdom. So, man,
Thank you.
I just can't wait to see what God is going to do for you guys in this year, man. The rest of this year, it's going to be something.
That's it.
Yeah.
You want to be up?
We definitely having talks and discussion about having a reunion with all the couples. So we'll be in tune. Yeah, we'll definitely be in tune, to see how that works and plays out. But for those that are watching, we will be back here Monday, same time at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time with another couple. So if you guys feel free to just either, if you're not following us and you just stumble by, please go ahead and follow us and our guests. And we look forward to seeing you guys on Monday. Any last words?
You guys be blessed, man. Y'all have a good evening.
All right, you too. Thanks, guys. See y'all.